Amelia Kane, a single mother with $47 in her account, drove her sputtering hatchback toward the abandoned orchard she'd inherited, unaware that a hidden chamber beneath its gnarled trees would rewrite Willow Creek's fate. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if the story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The auctioneer's voice sliced through the opulent Clearwater Estate ballroom, its British cadence as polished as the crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across ivory walls. 3 million, going once. The words reverberated, echoing off modernist paintings whose chaotic swirls seemed to mock the lone figure in worn overalls at the room's edge. Harold Thornfield, 72, gripped a crumpled envelope in his pocket, $178,000, his life savings plus loans from loyal employees, a desperate bid to save Thornfield Heritage Orchard. The crowd's laughter still burned, their derision sharp after his audacious, inadequate offer. Men in tailored Italian suits and women in silk gowns sipped champagne from flutes that caught the light, their whispers cruel. Is that dirt under his nails? A woman in a cream Chanel suit muttered, loud enough for Harold to hear. Her companion, a silver-haired man with a silk pocket square, smirked. Probably the gardener lost his way. Harold's weathered face betrayed no emotion, though his hands clenched briefly, the soil beneath his nails a badge of honor from the orchard his great-grandfather planted in 1875. Each grain of earth tied him to a legacy of resilience, saplings nurtured through harsh winters, harvests that defied economic collapse, innovations that outlasted competitors. The gavel hovered, its polished wood glinting, poised to shatter his family's 150-year heritage. Harold's heart pounded, each beat echoing a promise made 5 years ago to his late wife, Margaret, on her deathbed, fight for Thornfield until the end. Her memory anchored him, her gentle voice urging him to stand tall despite the room's scorn. 9 years of blight, medical bills, and Clearwater Development's predatory loans had brought him here, to this moment of public humiliation. Yet, as the gavel rose, a low tremor shook the floor, the chandeliers tinkling like nervous stars. The murmurs faltered, replaced by a rhythmic thunder growing louder, undeniable, drowning out the chatter. Through the massive east windows, framed by heavy velvet drapes, 6 sleek, black military-grade helicopters bearing the Thornfield Aerospace logo descended onto the manicured lawn. Their synchronized landing bent ornamental trees and rippled the decorative pond, the downdraft scattering petals across the grass. Uniformed crews disembarked with precision, taking positions as if securing a battlefield rather than a billionaire's estate. All eyes turned to Harold, the weathered farmer who, moments ago, had been a figure of ridicule. His calloused hand now held a satellite phone, its sleek design alien against his faded flannel shirt. A thin smile crossed his sun-lined face, the first sign of defiance breaking through his stoic mask. He pressed a button and spoke 2 words into the receiver, his voice low but carrying in the stunned silence. "I'm ready." The Clearwater Estate, a 19th-century mansion perched on a bluff overlooking Lake Golden, exuded timeless grandeur with its marble steps, colonnaded entrance, and sprawling lawns. Built by a railroad magnate, it had hosted presidents and tycoons before becoming a venue for the ultra-wealthy. Today, it was a playground for the annual luxury property auction, where fortunes were wagered on the misfortunes of others. German sports cars, Maseratis, and chauffeur-driven Bentley SUVs lined the circular driveway, their polished surfaces reflecting the late September sun like mirrors. Valets in crisp uniforms darted between vehicles, their efficiency masking their judgments of the arriving guests. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with anticipation, its ivory walls adorned with abstract art and its chandeliers casting a glow over rows of plush velvet chairs. Bidders, armed with electronic paddles, eyed foreclosed estates, rare collectibles, and vintage wine collections, spoils seized from those who could no longer afford them. The air carried the scent of expensive perfumes and aged oak, a stark contrast to the earthy tang of Harold's orchard. Harold Thornfield arrived in his rusted 1992 Ford pickup, its faded red paint and rattling engine clashing with the lot's luxury vehicles. The valet, a young man in a black vest, hesitated, his disdain barely concealed as he took the keys, his eyes lingering on Harold's work boots caked with orchard soil. Harold climbed the marble steps, each step heavier under the weight of judgmental glances. His faded overalls and flannel shirt marked him as an outsider, a dandelion in a rose garden. He felt every whispered jab, is he lost? But his resolve held firm, anchored by Margaret's memory. Her faith in him, her love for the orchard, had sustained him through decades of labor and loss. The orchard, 215 acres of apple trees, a white colonial farmhouse, a red barn, and a processing facility, was more than land. It was a legacy, his great-grandfather's saplings carried across the Atlantic, his grandfather's expansion during the Depression, his father's innovations in irrigation and grafting. To the bidders, it was development potential, a canvas for luxury condos, or a resort. To Harold, it was home, the soil where he'd proposed to Margaret under a blooming apple tree where their dreams had taken root. Inside, the ballroom dazzled, its chandeliers scattering light like diamonds over rows of chairs. Bidders chatted casually, their wealth insulating them from the weight of their actions. Harold declined a paddle at the entrance, knowing surprise was his only weapon. He stood against the back wall, ignoring stares, his envelope a frail defense against the financial titans ahead. 3 rows forward sat Victor Harrington, CEO of Clearwater Development Corporation, his silver hair and tailored suit exuding authority. His sharp features and calculated smile masked a predator's instinct, honed over decades of acquiring distressed properties. Beside him, Mayor Patricia Wilson of Golden Valley, her political smile a veneer for zoning changes that favored developers over farmers. Their alliance had crushed dozens of family farms, including Harold's, through predatory loans, manipulated water rights, and backroom deals that turned fertile fields into gated communities. Harrington's eyes flicked toward Harold, a brief, dismissive glance that carried the weight of a man accustomed to winning. The auction began with smaller lots, vintage Ferraris, impressionist paintings, diamond-encrusted Rolexes. Millions changed hands with casual nods, bidders multitasking on phones or whispering over champagne. Auctioneer William Barrett, his British accent lending sophistication, maintained a rhythmic cadence, his banter smooth as silk. And now, Lot 29, he announced, as aerial images of Thornfield Orchard flashed on a digital screen. A crown jewel, 215 acres of prime agricultural land, historical residence, outbuildings, and exceptional development potential due to recent zoning adjustments. The screen showed Harold's farmhouse, its sagging porch proud despite age, the red barn his grandfather rebuilt after World War II, the processing facility his father modernized in the 1960s. Reduced to a line item stripped of its history. Harold's heart pounded, each beat a reminder of Margaret's faith, her hand in his as they walked the orchard rows, planning a future they'd never fully share. Starting bid, $1.2 million, Barrett declared. Harold's $178,000 felt like pocket change, but he clung to hope, to the soil that had nourished his family's dreams through generations of hardship. Bidding erupted with the fervor of a feeding frenzy. $1.2 million, called a man in a pinstripe suit, his paddle raised with casual arrogance. $1.3, countered a woman engrossed in her tablet, her eyes never leaving the screen. $1.5. The price soared past $2 million, each bid a dagger to Harold's resolve. These investors, who'd never smelled apple blossoms or felt the weight of a harvest basket, saw only profit margins and zoning maps. 9 years earlier, a blight had decimated 40% of his trees, a cruel blow that left rows of gnarled skeletons. Then Margaret's cancer diagnosis brought medical bills that dwarfed his savings. Clearwater's loans, offered as a lifeline, turned predatory, terms shifting, interest rates spiking, restructuring denied. The orchard, once a beacon of Golden Valley's agricultural pride, became a liability, its foreclosure a calculated step in Clearwater's expansion. Now Victor Harrington entered the fray. $3 million, he called. his paddle raised with the casual dominance of a man who rarely lost. His voice carried a quiet menace, a signal to others to back off. The room hushed, bidders assessing the CEO's intent, their paddles lowering as they recognized his resolve. Harold seized the fleeting pause, stepping forward from the shadows. $178,000, he declared, his voice steady despite the tremor in his calloused hands, which betrayed the weight of 5 generations resting on this moment. Heads swiveled, tailored suits and designer gowns rustling as amusement rippled through the crowd. Their laughter was sharp, biting, like shards of glass glinting under the chandeliers. Barrett peered over his gold-rimmed glasses, his brow furrowing in confusion. Sir, the current bid is $3 million. Are you offering $3,178,000? Harold's weathered fingers drew the crumpled envelope from his overalls, its edges worn from countless anxious grips, and he held it aloft as if it could shield his family's legacy. No, sir. $178,000 cash. It's all I have, he said, his words carrying a quiet defiance that silenced the room for a heartbeat. The smirks lingered, the scent of expensive perfumes mingling with the crowd's disdain. A woman in a silk shawl whispered loudly, "He's delusional," her companion chuckling, unaware that the air was about to shift. Barrett tapped his gavel lightly. "Sir, bids must exceed the current offer." Harold straightened, his work boots planted firmly on the polished floor. "I'm not bidding. I'm making a statement. That orchard's been Thornfield land for 5 generations. My great-grandfather planted those first trees with saplings he brought from across the ocean. My grandfather expanded it during the Depression when everyone called him mad. My father innovated our growing techniques when competitors said it couldn't be done. It's worth $3 million to you, but you've never seen an apple bud bloom or felt the earth that holds my family's dreams. Look me in the eye, know the man whose heritage you're buying as an investment." The room grew quieter, some bidders shifting uncomfortably in their velvet chairs, their champagne flutes forgotten. Harold's gaze locked on Harrington, whose expression darkened, a flicker of unease breaking his polished facade. "I know what Clearwater did," Harold continued, his voice gaining strength. "Changed loan terms after my wife died, denied restructuring when I begged, manipulated water rights, pressured county assessors to inflate valuations." Harrington's jaw tightened, and he signaled security with a subtle nod. 2 guards in dark suits moved toward Harold, their steps deliberate. Barrett cleared his throat, his composure fraying. "Very moving, I'm sure, but we must proceed." Harold cut him off undeterred. "You're not just buying land. You're erasing a family, a history, a community. And I'll stand here with dirt under my nails to remind you of that." The guards were nearly upon him when the floor trembled, the chandeliers swaying, their crystals tinkling like a distant warning. A deep, rhythmic thump penetrated the ballroom, growing louder, undeniable. Barrett paused, looking to the ceiling in confusion. Through the east windows, the helicopters appeared, their sleek black bodies gleaming, Thornfield Aerospace logos stark against the afternoon sun. Barrett stammered, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm," but his voice was drowned by a commanding shout from the entrance. $10 million. Jackson Thornfield stood in the doorway, his tailored suit framing an imposing presence, flanked by 2 aides clutching tablets and briefcases. His sharp features and controlled demeanor radiated authority, a stark contrast to the unruly curls Harold remembered from their youth. $10 million for Lot 29, Jackson repeated, his voice cutting through the chaos. The room erupted in whispers, the crowd craning to see the new arrival. "Jackson Thornfield," someone hissed. "Thornfield Aerospace, worth $40 billion. Harold froze, the satellite phone heavy in his hand, its weight grounding him as his mind reeled. Jackson, his younger brother, who had left 35 years ago after a bitter fight with their father, vowing never to return to Golden Valley. Now a billionaire defense contractor, his reclusiveness legendary, his innovations in helicopter design and drone technology reshaping modern warfare. Barrett recovered, his professionalism strained. 10 million, do I hear 10.5? Silence. Harrington sat rigid, his eyes narrowed, calculating. No one dared challenge the bid. 10 million, sold. Barrett's gavel fell, the sound sharp and final. Jackson approached Harold, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor, stopping a few feet away. Up close, his sophisticated haircut tamed the curls they'd both inherited from their mother, but his eyes held the same intensity Harold remembered from their boyhood fights. "Hello, Harry," Jackson said, his voice deeper, more controlled. Harold's throat tightened. "Jack, you bought the orchard." Jackson's gaze flickered with something unreadable, regret, resolve, or both. "There's a lot you don't know, Harry. About why I left, about Clearwater, about what I found 3 months ago." Before Harold could respond, Victor Harrington approached, his corporate smile forced, his eyes wary. "Mr. Thornfield, what a pleasure. Clearwater Development admires your success." Jackson turned, his gaze icy, assessing Harrington like a predator sizing up prey. "I'm familiar with your company, Mr. Harrington, particularly its lending practices in agricultural communities. My team's documented fascinating patterns." Harrington's smile faltered, his face paling. "I'd be happy to discuss." Jackson cut him off, his tone clipped. "We'll meet with the Federal Banking Commission, the Department of Agriculture's Land Management Division, and the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. My team's been thorough." Harrington's composure cracked, his hand twitching as if to signal his aides. Jackson turned to his aide, Commander Chun, a sharp-featured woman whose tablet never left her hand. "Inform Squadron 2. Accelerate the Clearwater documentation. Contact General Marshall." To Major Rivera, a young man with a soldier's bearing. "Process the orchard transfer to the Thornfield Family Trust immediately." Harold watched, dazed, the room spinning. "Jack, what's happening?" Jackson's expression softened, a rare glimpse of the brother beneath the billionaire. "It's about setting things right, Harry. Come with me to Thornfield." The lead helicopter, a sleek Thornfield Aerospace prototype, sliced through the September sky, its advanced noise-dampening technology rendering it an eerie whisper compared to the thunderous spectacle of its arrival at Clearwater Estate. Its matte-black fuselage gleamed faintly under the late afternoon sun, cutting a predatory silhouette against the rolling clouds over Golden Valley. Inside the luxurious cabin, Harold Thornfield, 72, sat opposite his estranged brother, Jackson, the contrast between them as stark as the polished mahogany paneling and the cracked vinyl of Harold's old tractor seat back at the orchard. The leather seats, buttery and cool, cradled Harold's worn frame, but their comfort felt alien, a reminder of the chasm between his life of soil and sweat and Jackson's world of billion-dollar deals. Through the reinforced, triple-paned windows, Golden Valley's orchards and fields unfolded below, a patchwork quilt of heritage now fraying at the edges. Once lush landscapes where apple trees bloomed in defiant symmetry and wheat fields swayed like golden oceans were marred by the scars of Clearwater Development's ambition, sprawling highways carving through fertile soil, gated communities with manicured lawns replacing family farms and skeletal construction cranes looming like vultures over the horizon. Each new development was a wound, a testament to Clearwater's relentless push to reshape the valley into a playground for the wealthy. Jackson, 67, studied his brother with the precision of a man accustomed to reading boardrooms and battlefields. His tailored charcoal suit, cut to perfection, remained immaculate despite the day's chaos at the auction where his $10 million bid had wrested Thornfield Heritage Orchard from Clearwater's grasp. His sharp features, softened only slightly by age, bore the weight of their 35-year estrangement, but a flicker of their old familiarity surfaced in his voice. "Still not a fan of flying, Harry?" he asked, a faint trace of their boyhood banter breaking through, recalling summers when they'd raced through the orchard, dreaming of adventures beyond Golden Valley. Harold grunted, his work boots caked with orchard soil, looking comically out of place on the plush, cream-colored carpet. He shifted uncomfortably, the cabin's opulence amplifying his sense of displacement. "Flew twice in my life," he said, his voice rough as gravel. Once to Boston for Margaret's specialist, clinging to hope we couldn't afford. Then to her funeral when hope ran dry. Not much chance to get used to it. The mention of Margaret, his late wife, hung heavy, her memory a silent passenger in the cabin. Her belief in the orchard, in him, had been his anchor through years of blight and betrayal, and now her absence sharpened the stakes of this unexpected reunion. Harold's gaze flicked to the rear of the cabin, where Jackson's aides, Commander Elena Chin and Major Diego Rivera, sat engrossed in secure tablets, their screens casting faint blue glows across their focused faces. Chin, a former Special Forces intelligence officer, typed rapidly, her sharp eyes scanning encrypted data, while Rivera, a young security specialist with a soldier's posture, monitored real-time aerial feeds. Their intensity was palpable, a coiled energy that suggested the day's drama was far from over. "Your escort's always this intense?" Harold asked, half joking, but his tone carried a farmer's wariness of the unfamiliar. Jackson's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "They're the best at what they do. Chin handles tactical operations and intelligence. Rivera's my shield against threats, corporate or otherwise. They're trusted with what we're uncovering." Harold's brow furrowed, the weight of Jackson's words settling in. The helicopter banked slightly, revealing Thornfield Orchard below. Its neglected rows a painful contrast to the valley's encroaching developments. Diseased trees stood like ghosts, their twisted branches clawing at the sky while rusted irrigation pipes snaked through untended fields. Yet the orchard's heart endured, the white farmhouse with its sagging porch, the red barn weathered but proud, the stone walls built by their great-grandfather's hands. Harold's chest tightened, the sight a reminder of all he'd fought to save and all he'd nearly lost to Clearwater's predatory loans. Jackson leaned forward, his voice lowering as if the cabin's soundproofing weren't enough. "What you did back there, Harry, standing up to Harrington, calling out Clearwater's schemes in front of that crowd, it took guts. But it's just the beginning." Harold met his brother's gaze, seeing not the billionaire CEO but the boy who'd once shared his dreams under apple trees. "You dropped $10 million and brought an Air Force, Jack. What's the rest of it?" Jackson's eyes darkened, a storm brewing behind them. "Clearwater's not just after our orchard. They're targeting the aquifer beneath Golden Valley, the largest freshwater reserve in the Northeast. It's worth billions, and they've been playing the long game, decades of loans, foreclosures, zoning manipulations." The revelation landed like a stone in Harold's gut, the scope of Clearwater's ambition dwarfing his personal battle. The helicopter's hum seemed to fade, the cabin shrinking to the space between two brothers reunited by a shared enemy but divided by years of silence. Outside, the valley stretched toward the horizon, its beauty and scars intertwined, a battleground where heritage and greed collided. Harold's hand tightened around the armrest, his resolve hardening. Whatever secrets Jackson carried, whatever fight lay ahead, Thornfield Orchard was theirs again. And he'd be damned if he let it fall without a fight. "Former Special Forces," Jackson replied. "Chin handles tactical operations and intelligence. Rivera oversees security protocols. They're the only ones I trust with what we're uncovering." Harold leaned forward, his weathered hands clasped. "Which is what, exactly?" "You dropped $10 million, brought a private Air Force, and started throwing around threats about federal investigations. I deserve answers, Jack." Jackson considered him for a moment, then activated a tablet, a holographic map of Golden Valley materializing between them. Dozens of properties glowed red, forming a deliberate pattern. Clearwater's acquisitions aren't random. They're targeting the aquifer system beneath Golden Valley, the largest untapped freshwater reserve in the Northeast, hidden until a classified Department of Defense survey 3 months ago. Harold's eyes widened, the pieces clicking. "They're buying farms to control water rights." Jackson nodded, manipulating the hologram to show underground channels. Meridian Resource Holdings, Clearwater's parent company, specializes in acquiring water resources before climate change makes them exponentially valuable. In 15 years, when droughts destabilize supplies, this aquifer could be worth $300 billion. Harold stared at the map, the red dots marking farms he knew by name: Johnson's Dairy, Murphy's Vineyard, the Wilson family's cornfields, all lost to Clearwater's foreclosures. They've been planning this for years, he said, his voice heavy with realization. Decades, Jackson corrected. Meridian's strategy is long-term, exploiting vulnerabilities in rural communities, economic downturns, aging farmers, regulatory loopholes. Golden Valley's aquifer is their crown jewel. The helicopter banked slightly, revealing Thornfield Orchard below, its neglect stark from the air. Diseased trees stood like skeletons, the irrigation system rusted and patchy, equipment idle under tarps. Yet the orchard's bones endured. Century-old stone walls, the white farmhouse with its sagging porch, the red barn weathered but unyielding. You let it deteriorate, Jackson observed, his tone matter-of-fact, not accusatory. Harold's jaw tightened. Margaret's medical bills took everything. Then the blight hit, killed 40% of the trees. Clearwater's loans were the final blow. Terms changed overnight. Interest doubled. No restructuring. I was running on hope and stubbornness. Jackson's eyes softened, a rare crack in his polished facade. You held on longer than most, Harry. The helicopter settled onto the orchard's front field, its downdraft rippling the unmowed grass. Dust swirled as the brothers disembarked, their security team establishing a perimeter with practiced efficiency. An unexpected sight greeted them, a cluster of vehicles parked along the gravel driveway, pickups, sedans, a school bus, and a crowd of Golden Valley residents waiting near the farmhouse. Farmers in worn caps, teachers, shopkeepers, their faces etched with concern and curiosity. Frank Miller, the equipment repairman whose family had fixed Thornfield's tractors for 3 generations, stepped forward, his weathered face creased with relief. Harold, we heard about the auction. Jimmy's nephew works security at Clearwater Estate, called the minute he saw what happened. His eyes widened as he recognized Jackson, now a stranger in a tailored suit. Jack Thornfield? That really you? Jackson nodded, visibly uncomfortable under the scrutiny but maintaining composure. It's Jackson now, Mr. Miller. Been a long time. A murmur rippled through the crowd as connections were made, the local boy who'd left in anger, now a billionaire whose helicopters had upended the auction. You bought the orchard? Asked Jim Peterson, a dairy farmer whose own land bordered Thornfield. I reclaimed it, Jackson corrected, his voice firm. And I've secured legal mechanisms to keep it in Thornfield hands permanently. Harold raised a hand, addressing the group. I appreciate you all coming, truly. It means more than you know. But Jack and I need some time to sort this out. Frank nodded, understanding. We just wanted to make sure you were all right, Harold. After what Clearwater's done to half the county, we were worried Thornfield would be next, another gated community where our fields used to be. Jackson's expression hardened. That's not happening. Not to this farm, and if I have anything to say about it, not to any others in Golden Valley. The crowd dispersed reluctantly, their vehicles kicking up dust as they left, but their presence lingered, a testament to the community's unspoken bond. Harold led Jackson to the farmhouse, its wraparound porch creaking underfoot, a sound that triggered memories of their childhood. Racing through the orchard, climbing trees, their mother's laughter. Inside, time stood still. Family photos lined the walls. The oak dining table bore scars from decades of meals. The ancient fridge hummed loudly. Jackson paused at a faded photo of them as boys atop a tractor, gap-toothed and grinning, their father's stern silhouette in the background. You kept everything the same, he said quietly, his hand trailing over the frame. Harold headed to the kitchen, pulling out a worn percolator. Not by choice. Coffee? It's not your fancy corporate blend, but it'll wake the dead. Jackson managed a faint smile. I'd appreciate that. Over steaming mugs, the kitchen table became a confessional. Harold set his mug down, his voice low. Why now, Jack? After 35 years of silence, not a call, not a letter, not even when Margaret died. You show up with helicopters and a fortune. What changed? Jackson's gaze dropped to his coffee, the weight of decades pressing on him. I left because of a fight, Harry, but not just with Dad. 2 weeks before I walked out, I found documents in his office, loan applications from Valley Bank with predatory terms, interest rates designed to choke us. Then a letter from Richard Harrington, Victor's father, offering to buy water exploration rights on our land. Dad refused, called it a betrayal of everything Thornfield stood for. When I asked why he didn't fight back, he exploded, said I was meddling. The fight about MIT was just the spark. Harold's jaw tightened. You were accepted to MIT? Jackson nodded. Partial scholarship, aerospace engineering. Dad saw it as abandonment, said I was no son of his if I chose books over the orchard. I wrote to you, Harry, every month for a year. The letters came back unopened. Harold stood abruptly, moving to the window overlooking the orchard. Dad intercepted them. He never said a word. His voice cracked, the betrayal raw. He was stubborn, Harry, Jackson said. So was I. But 3 months ago, my company's DoD contract uncovered the Golden Valley Aquifer. When I saw Clearwater's acquisition patterns, I knew it wasn't just our orchard, they're targeting the entire county. A sharp knock interrupted, the sound echoing through the old farmhouse. Harold opened the door to find Sheriff Diane Martinez, 48, standing on the porch, her department-issued hat in hand, her expression a mix of professional neutrality and personal concern. Her dark eyes scanned the brothers, lingering on Jackson's tailored suit and the security team outside. Mayor Wilson's practically hyperventilating in my office, she said without preamble. Harrington's calling the governor, the state police, everyone he can reach. Care to explain the helicopters? Jackson remained calm, his voice measured. Legal reclamation of family property, Sheriff. Perfectly within my rights. Martinez's eyebrow arched. And the FBI threats? I'm hearing words like federal investigation and financial crimes. What's going on? Harold stepped in, his tone firm. We have concerns about Clearwater Development's practices, Diane. Serious ones. Martinez studied him, her law enforcement instincts sharp. Harrington looked like he'd seen a ghost when he called in his complaint. What's the evidence? Jackson hesitated, then activated his tablet, displaying a timeline of Clearwater's activities, predatory loans, aquifer-targeted acquisitions, payoffs to officials. Martinez's face hardened as she scrolled through the data. This is textbook corruption. Loan terms rigged to force default, zoning changes pushed through without review, water rights manipulated. How long have you been sitting on this? 3 months, Jackson said. My company's been tracking Meridian Resource Holdings, Clearwater's parent, since we identified the aquifer's strategic value. Their entire operation is built on controlling water before climate change makes it scarcer than oil. Martinez's expression darkened. And the helicopters? Jackson met her gaze. A necessary show of force. Meridian doesn't respond to subtlety. Before she could press further, Commander Chen entered, her posture alert. Mr. Thornfield, aerial surveillance detected 3 black SUVs approaching from the county road. No markings, but they match Meridian's asset protection team. Jackson's response was immediate. Defensive Protocol 4. No engagement unless threatened. Full perimeter security. Martinez bristled, her hand instinctively moving toward her service weapon. Paramilitary in my county? Without my knowledge. Jackson's tone was calm but firm. Meridian Security Division employs former private military contractors. Their tactics are aggressive, especially when their operations are threatened. Harold joined them at the window, watching the SUVs stop at the property's edge, blocked by the helicopter placement. Men in tactical gear emerged, their movements suggesting professional training. They're here for your evidence, Harold realized. Jackson nodded. Standard protocol: secure or destroy incriminating material before it reaches authorities. Martinez straightened, her decision made. Not in my jurisdiction. She keyed her radio. This is Sheriff Martinez. All available units to Thornfield Orchard, Code 2, no sirens. We have unauthorized paramilitary activity on private property. Turning to Jackson, she demanded, I need everything you have on Clearwater now. If I'm putting my deputies in harm's way, I need evidence that'll hold up when Harrington's lawyers come knocking. Jackson nodded to Chen, who began transferring files to a secure drive. "This is 30 years of preparation," he told Harold quietly. "Everything I've built, Thornfield Aerospace, my connections, my technology, was to reach a moment where I could fight back effectively." Harold studied his brother, seeing not just the billionaire but the farm boy who'd never truly left. "You didn't just leave," he said. "You were preparing." Jackson's eyes met his, a rare moment of vulnerability. "I couldn't fight them as a kid with grease under my nails, so I became someone they couldn't ignore." Outside, the standoff escalated. Martinez's deputies arrived, establishing positions that encircled Clearwater's forces, their patrol cars forming a barrier along the county road. The tactical team held their ground, their leader arguing via radio, citing obscure loan covenants. Martinez's voice crackled over the frequency. "You have 3 minutes to withdraw to the county road or face arrest for violating Ordinance 1547, unauthorized paramilitary activity." Inside, Jackson monitored the situation on a secure tablet, his team's drones providing real-time footage. "They're testing you," he told Martinez. Meridians used to local authorities backing down when faced with legal complexity. Martinez's eyes narrowed. "They haven't met me." Harold watched the exchange, a mix of pride and unease. Golden Valley had always been a quiet county, its conflicts settled over coffee or at town halls. Now it was a battleground, and his orchard was the epicenter. The standoff resolved without violence, Clearwater's team retreating under Martinez's unyielding pressure, but the tension lingered. Martinez turned to the brothers. "Harrington's not done. My contact at the courthouse says he's pushing an emergency county commission meeting, something about eminent domain for public safety. They're trying to seize the orchard before you can secure it legally." Jackson's expression hardened. "It's their failsafe. Use governmental authority to override private ownership disputes." Harold straightened, a spark of determination in his eyes. "They need a public comment period, even for emergency sessions. 5 minutes per speaker, no limit on registration until the meeting starts." Martinez's lips curved into a faint smile. "And who knows the county bylaws better than the man who's attended every commission meeting for 30 years? Harold nodded, his voice steady. 273 meetings since Dad died. I know every commissioner, their families, their weaknesses. And I know every farmer in this county who's been squeezed by Clearwater. I can pack that hearing room." The Golden Valley Courthouse, a limestone relic from 1905, stood as a monument to the county's agricultural heyday, its copper dome tarnished but proud. That evening it hummed with energy, the commission chamber overflowing with farmers, orchard keepers, and residents. Harold's calls had mobilized 43 speakers, each entitled to 5 minutes of public comment, ensuring hours of delay before any vote. The room smelled of old wood and determination, the crowd's murmurs a low hum of defiance. Victor Harrington paced near the commissioner's platform, his tailored suit out of place among the work boots and flannel. His composure was fraying, his silver hair slightly disheveled, his movements sharp with anxiety. County Commission Chairman Robert Wilson, Mayor Patricia Wilson's husband, called the meeting to order with reluctant gavel strikes, his prepared remarks robotic. "Due to urgent public safety concerns regarding water security, we convene to consider Resolution 47B, authorizing eminent domain for critical infrastructure protection." The bureaucratic language hit its true aim, seizing aquifer-linked properties, including Thornfield Orchard. Harold sat in the front row, a clipboard with the speaker list on his knee, his weathered face calm but resolute. Behind him, the community he'd rallied, dairy farmers, vineyard owners, teachers, retirees, filled the chamber, their presence a rebuke to Clearwater's influence. The first speaker, Ellen Reynolds, a retired banker and uncompromised commissioner, approached the podium. "I've seen Clearwater's loans ruin families," she said, her voice steady. "Terms that changed without notice, payments accelerated without cause. This isn't business, it's predation." Her words set the tone, each speaker adding to a mosaic of exploitation. A farmer who lost his land after declining water rights, a water inspector fired for questioning Clearwater's permits, a widow whose husband's death coincided with sudden foreclosure. Harrington's agitation grew, his phone buzzing with urgent calls, his aides whispering frantically. Jackson, seated beside Harold, received updates from Commander Chin. FBI team is 30 minutes out, coordinating with state police for simultaneous raids on Meridian's facilities. During a recess, the brothers and Martinez convened in a side corridor. Harrington's moving assets, Martinez reported, her radio crackling. Vehicles leaving Clearwater's headquarters with equipment cases likely document destruction. Jackson's eyes narrowed. Standard protocol. They'll shred anything incriminating before the FBI arrives. Harold gripped his clipboard. We've got 27 speakers left. That's over 2 hours if they don't cut us off. Jackson nodded, sending an encrypted message to Chin. We need a distraction. Back in the chamber, Chen set up a portable projector as Jackson rose. Point of procedure, he called, his voice commanding. Chairman Wilson frowned. Public comment doesn't permit interruptions. Jackson countered smoothly, Bylaw 154.7 allows relevant evidence during emergency hearings. The county attorney nodded reluctantly. 5 minutes, Wilson conceded. Jackson stood at the chamber's center, Chin activating the projector. I'm Jackson Thornfield, CEO of Thornfield Aerospace. 3 months ago, my company's DoD contract identified the Golden Valley Aquifer as a strategic resource. A geological map appeared, showing the aquifer's vast network. Clearwater Development, a Meridian subsidiary, has systematically acquired properties over its key access points. He switched to a financial display. Their internal models, obtained legally after Meridian's cyber attack on our systems, project water rights to increase 4,000% in 20 years. The crowd gasped, the commissioners shifting uncomfortably. Harrington surged to his feet. This is espionage. Those documents are proprietary. A new voice cut through from the entrance. They're evidence in a federal investigation. Special Agent Diana Reeves, FBI, stood with agents in windbreakers, her credentials raised. Warrants are being executed at Meridian's facilities. These documents were obtained legally following their unauthorized cyber intrusion. Harrington turned toward the exit, but Martinez blocked his path. Going somewhere, Victor? He stammered, this is a witch hunt. Harold stepped forward. It's about a community understanding how it's been exploited. Chairman Wilson, calculating his options, moved to table the resolution. Reeves interjected, I'll need all copies as evidence. As agents secured the documents, Ellen Reynolds approached the brothers. I voted against Clearwater for years, suspected something was wrong. Thank you for proving it. Outside, the community gathered on the courthouse steps, sharing stories of Clearwater's tactics, their collective voice a new force. Harrington was escorted out in handcuffs, his empire unraveling. 3 months after the auction that nearly shattered Thornfield Orchard, the 215-acre expanse pulsed with life, its once barren fields now a vibrant canvas of rebirth. Spring's gentle touch had reshaped the land. Rows of young saplings, their roots sipping from precision irrigation systems crafted by Thornfield Aerospace, reached for the April sky. The breeze carried the delicate perfume of apple blossoms woven with the rich scent of loamy earth, a far cry from the skeletal remains of blight-ravaged trees that had haunted the orchard. Workers, many displaced from farms swallowed by Clearwater Development's ruthless foreclosures, moved through the rows with quiet determination. Folks like Amos Carter, a dairy farmer who'd lost his land in 23, and Lena Torres, whose family had tended vineyards for generations, married time-honored pruning skills with Jackson's high-tech tools. Above, drones whispered through the air, their sensors tracking soil vitality and guiding hands to coax frail branches toward health. At the orchard's core, the white colonial farmhouse stood resolute, its creaking porch rebuilt, its faded siding now a crisp ivory. The red barn, a weathered monument to Thornfield's history, shimmered with solar panels that fueled the operation, while subterranean water recyclers ensured no drop went to waste. Inside, the kitchen glowed with morning light, the oak table etched with decades of family life, from childish carvings to Margaret's jam-making spills, bearing witness to a new chapter. Harold Thornfield, 72, his hands still rough from years of labor, sat across from his brother Jackson, the billionaire who'd returned after decades of exile. They sipped coffee from mismatched mugs, the sharp edges of their reunion dulled by months of shared purpose. The room smelled of brewing grounds and memory, its walls adorned with faded photos. Their parents atop a hay bale, Harold and Margaret laughing under a tree, Jackson as a lanky teen with wild curls. Jackson tapped his tablet, its screen casting a soft glow across his pressed shirt. "Governor signed the Aquifer Safeguard Bill last night," he said, a quiet pride in his tone. "No private entity can monopolize water rights, and extraction needs a community vote, public, transparent." He flicked to another file. "Here in Golden Valley, we've got a new commission. Clara Hensley's chair, she pushed through the Agricultural Heritage District with tax breaks for eco-friendly farms and a ban on non-agricultural zoning." Harold's weathered face eased into a nod, his gaze drifting to the orchard beyond the window where sunlight danced on new leaves. "Harrington's fate?" Jackson's eyes glinted, a rare smirk breaking through. "Indicted on 39 counts, fraud, racketeering, environmental violations, tax dodges. Meridian's board ousted him yesterday, trying to save face." He's staring at a long sentence. Harold set his mug down, the clink echoing softly. "Serves him right for strangling this town." Outside, Thornfield Orchard was more than a farm reborn. It was Willow Creek's lifeline, a symbol of defiance against a future of strip malls and corporate greed. The Thornfield Foundation, fueled by Jackson's fortune and Harold's deep roots, had sparked a renaissance. 19 farms, stolen by Clearwater schemes, were returning to their owners, supported by zero-interest loans and expert guidance. Near the orchard's boundary, a new community hub, its cedar beams echoing the barn's design, bustled with activity. Locals gathered for workshops, learning to calibrate drones, optimize water systems, or pitch heirloom apples to city markets. Lena Torres, soil still clinging to her gloves, ushered a group of kids toward a class on natural pest control. "This orchard saved me," she confided to Harold, her voice steady but heavy. "After the vineyard went under, I was done. Now I'm teaching my son what my dad taught me." Harold, his boots scuffing the dirt path, gave her a firm nod. "You're not just teaching, Lena. You're building a future." Nearby, Amos Carter tinkered with a drone, his farmer's hands navigating the interface with surprising ease. "Thought I'd be flipping burgers by now," he said with a grin. "These machines tripled my peach yield." The orchard's revival rippled through Willow Creek, the diner on Main Street, once a ghost town, now overflowed with workers, the feed store stocked up on irrigation tubing, and the elementary school added a science teacher to handle the influx of returning families. Back in the kitchen, the brothers turned to what lay ahead. Jackson leaned forward, his tablet idle for once. "The foundation's scaling up," he said. "We're linking with state universities for research, new apple breeds resistant to blight, suited to changing climates. Trials kick off here in June." Harold's brow furrowed, the old grower's caution surfacing. No lab trick beats feeling the bark, knowing when a tree's set to fruit. Jackson's chuckle was warm, unguarded. "Never will. But we'll keep those fruits coming, blending your instincts with my tech." Harold gave a grudging hum, then asked, "What about the Carter place?" The farm Jackson had scouted for a regional base. "It's perfect," Jackson replied. "High ground for comms, room for a prototype lab. Water's the hitch, springs are low, pipes need an overhaul." Harold's tone sharpened, practical but tinged with feeling. "I know those streams like my own hands. Can chart 'em for you." His granddaughter, Sophie, 9, was a regular now, her giggles filling the orchard as she hunted for early blooms, carrying Margaret's dream of a legacy passed down. A rap at the door cut through their talk. Sheriff Rosa Delgado entered, her badge glinting. her expression a mix of duty and camaraderie. "Morning, boys," she said, tossing a manila folder onto the table. "Deeds for the restored farms. Murphy's, Carter's, Lena's crew. They're all set to move in by Monday. Your foundation's footing the bill for their return." Harold flipped through the pages, his fingers pausing on names tied to his earliest memories. "Old Man Murphy used to trade corn for our cider," he said softly. "Swore he'd die before leaving his fields." Delgado's smile was faint but real. "He's getting those fields back, thanks to you too. This isn't just land. It's Willow Creek's heartbeat." Jackson glanced at his tablet, a new message flashing. "Harrington's lawyers are angling for a deal," he said, his voice tight, "offering Meridian's full records for leniency." Delgado's eyes narrowed. That'd blow open their whole operation, bribes, fake subsidiaries, all of it. But it could mean Harrington walks with a slap. Harold's fist clenched. He bled this county dry. He doesn't get to walk. Jackson's gaze was steady. FBI's still digging. Agent Lopez is tracing Meridian's overseas accounts. Harrington's not slipping away yet. Outside, the orchard shimmered, its rows a living promise. Workers unloaded saplings from a Thornfield Aerospace fan, the logo a quiet nod to Jackson's influence. Clara Hensley, the new commission chair, pulled up in her dusty Jeep, her gray braids swinging as she strode toward the porch. A lifelong farmer, she'd fought Clearwater's overreach despite threats to her own land. "Harold Jackson," she called, her voice carrying authority. "The Heritage District's pulling attention. 3 co-ops from Philly want contracts, and a seed archive scouting us for a Midwest branch." Harold's eyes brightened. "Jobs. Real ones, not seasonal." Clara nodded. "And safeguards. The district's rules block outfits like Meridian for good." Jackson added, "We're bankrolling a legal fund to back those rules. No more loopholes." Clara's grin was fierce. "Willow Creek's no one's pawn anymore." The moment paused as Sophie, her pigtails bouncing, raced up, clutching a fragile blossom. "Grandpa! Uncle Jack! The trees are waking up." Harold's stern face melted, his rough hand cradling the petal. "Good eye, Sophie." Land's singing again. Jackson watched, a shadow of regret in his eyes. He traded these moments for years of ambition, driven by a rift he could never fully mend. "You're the orchard's keeper now," he told Sophie, his voice soft. She beamed, then scampered off, her joy a spark against the morning. Delgado, Clara, and the brothers stepped onto the porch, the view sweeping across the orchard to Willow Creek's hills. The town, once fading, was alive again. A Saturday market thrived downtown, its booths brimming with Thornfield cider, Carter peaches, and Torres wines. The community hub ran night classes, robotics for teens, bookkeeping for growers, knitting past and future together. "This," Delgado said, nodding to the orchard's hum, "is what happens when a town stands up. You didn't just save Thornfield, you showed us we're unbreakable." Harold's eyes lingered on the saplings, their branches swaying. "Dad would have cursed all this tech," he said, a dry laugh escaping. "But he'd have bragged about these trees." Jackson nodded, his gaze distant. He hated progress but leaned into it when it saved us. "Those 60 sprayers?" He called them junk, then tripled her harvest. Clara smirked, leaning on the rail. "Stubborn as mules, adaptable as weeds, that's the Thornfield way." As sunlight bathed the orchard, Thornfield stood as Willow Creek's cornerstone, a defiant emblem of roots reclaimed. Harold and Jackson, once torn by years and pride, now shared a quiet pact, their bond resown in the earth they'd saved. The hub's chatter, the workers' steady pace, the sapling's silent growth all wove a future where Golden Valley's story would endure, not as a corporate ledger's footnote but as a living vow. Harold raised his mug, his eyes locking with Jackson's. "To Thornfield," he said, voice low. Jackson lifted his, a faint smile breaking free. "To us." And as the orchard bloomed, its roots deep, its branches bold, Willow Creek rose anew, a testament to grit and hope beneath a boundless spring sky. The morning sun filtered through the farmhouse kitchen's lace curtains, casting a warm glow across the oak table where Harold and Jackson Thornfield sat, their coffee mugs steaming in the quiet. The table, scarred from decades of family life, knife marks from Harold's childhood whittling, stains from Margaret's apple preserves held a weight beyond its wood, a silent witness to the brothers' fractured past and tentative reunion. Harold, 72, his weathered hands still bearing traces of orchard soil, set his chipped mug down with a soft clink, his eyes searching his younger brother's face. "You're not leaving, are you?" he asked, his voice gruff, masking a vulnerability he rarely showed. Jackson, now a billionaire cloaked in a tailored shirt that couldn't quite erase the farm boy beneath, leaned back, his gaze drifting to the orchard through the window. The rows of new saplings, their delicate blooms catching the light, glowed like a promise against the backdrop of Willow Creek's rolling hills. "The Peterson property's ideal for a regional office," he said, his tone measured, deliberate. "Good sight lines, space for secure communications. Thornfield Aerospace needs a foothold here." Harold's response was practical, a farmer's instinct to focus on the land rather than the emotion beneath the words. "Needs irrigation work. Spring's weak, channels deteriorated since old man Peterson passed." Jackson matched his brother's tone, their shared pragmatism a bridge across years of silence. "Modern engineering can fix that. Elevation's perfect for drone testing, too, clear skies, minimal interference." Their oblique exchange, discussing a life-altering decision through technical details, was quintessentially Thornfield, less about grand gestures, more about a shared purpose forged in the soil they both loved. The kitchen smelled of roasted coffee and history, its walls adorned with faded photos, their parents on a tractor, Harold and Margaret under a blooming apple tree, a young Jackson with unruly curls, his grin defiant even then. The brothers' bond, once shattered by their father's pride and Jackson's departure, was knitting itself back together, not with words of forgiveness but through this quiet alignment of goals. Outside, the orchard thrummed with activity, a stark contrast to its near abandonment 3 months prior. Spring had brought renewal, 215 acres of new saplings, their roots nourished by Thornfield Aerospace's advanced irrigation systems, stretched toward the sky. Workers, many from farms lost to Clearwater Development's foreclosures, moved among the rows, their hands blending traditional pruning with drone-guided precision. The air carried the sweet tang of apple blossoms, mingling with the hum of solar-powered pumps that fed water-conserving channels beneath the soil. The red barn, now crowned with sleek solar panels, stood as a symbol of the orchard's marriage of heritage and innovation, its weathered boards hiding a network of sensors that monitored tree health. The farmhouse itself had been restored, its sagging porch reinforced, its clapboards repainted white, yet it retained its soul, a home where Margaret's memory lingered in every creak of the floorboards. The Thornfield Foundation, seated with Jackson's wealth and Harold's community roots, had become a lifeline for Willow Creek, a town clawing its way back from economic despair. Beyond the orchard, a new community center hosted workshops on sustainable farming, drawing families eager to reclaim their livelihoods. The revival was palpable. The diner downtown buzzed with workers, the hardware store restocked irrigation parts, and the school's playground echoed with the laughter of children whose parents had returned to restored farms. The crunch of gravel under tires announced a visitor, breaking the brothers' quiet exchange. Sheriff Diane Martinez's patrol car pulled up to the farmhouse, its county emblem glinting in the sunlight. Her visits had become a regular fixture over the past 3 months, her role evolving from law enforcement to a bridge between the Thornfields and Willow Creek's recovering community. Martinez, 48, stepped onto the porch, her department-issued hat tucked under her arm, her dark eyes sharp with the instincts of a seasoned sheriff yet softened by a personal stake in the town's revival. She pushed open the screen door, a folder in her hand, and greeted the brothers with a nod. "Morning, Harold, Jackson. Hope I'm not interrupting your coffee summit." Harold managed a half-smile, gesturing to an empty chair. "Plenty to go around, Diane. What's the news?" Martinez set the folder on the table, its contents neatly organized, a testament to her meticulous nature. "Final property filings for the restored farms," she said, her voice carrying quiet pride. 17 properties, all returned to their original owners, supported by the Thornfield Foundation. The Johnsons, Wilsons, Pete Murphy, they're coming home next week. Harold opened the folder, his callous fingers tracing the names of families he'd known for decades. Pete's been in a one-bedroom apartment in Millersburg since Clearwater took his cornfields, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Told me last month he missed the smell of his fields more than anything. Martinez nodded, her lips curving slightly. He'll have that back, and more. Your foundation's covering relocation costs, even supplying seed for their first planting. Jackson leaned forward, his tablet resting beside the folder, its screen dark but ever-present. The foundation's doing more than restoration, he added, his tone matter-of-fact but underscored by conviction. We're providing interest-free loans, technical assistance, drones, irrigation systems, soil testing kits. It's sustainable redevelopment, no strings attached. These families aren't just getting their land back, they're getting the tools to keep it. Martinez's eyebrow arched, a mix of admiration and amusement. You don't do small, do you, Jackson? Most folks would have stopped at saving one farm. Jackson's gaze flicked to Harold, a silent acknowledgement of their shared stake. This isn't about one farm. It's about Willow Creek, about making sure Clearwater's kind never prey on this town again. Harold's eyes met his brother's, a flicker of pride breaking through his stoic facade. Dad always said the land's only as strong as the people working it, he murmured. You're giving them a fighting chance. The conversation paused as Lily, Harold's 9-year-old granddaughter, burst through the door, her overalls streaked with dirt, her hazel eyes, Margaret's eyes, bright with excitement. Grandpa, Uncle Jack, the new irrigation system's working. You can see the water moving in the channels. She held up a small, muddy root, a trophy from her morning explorations. Harold's stern features softened, his hand gently ruffling her hair. That's good work, kiddo. Means the trees'll be happy. Jackson watched, a rare softness in his expression, the weight of missed years evident in his gaze. You're keeping the orchard alive, Lily, he said, his voice quieter, almost reverent. She grinned, oblivious to the deeper meaning, and darted back outside, her laughter echoing across the porch. Martinez chuckled, leaning against the doorframe. That one's got Thornfield's stubbornness in spades. She'll be running this place before you know it. A new figure approached the farmhouse, her pickup kicking up dust along the gravel drive. Ellen Reynolds, the newly elected county commission chair, stepped out, her silver hair tied back, her denim jacket practical yet authoritative. Ellen had been a steadfast ally, her votes against Clearwater's schemes costing her politically until the town rallied behind her. She climbed the porch steps, greeting Martinez with a nod and the brothers with a warm smile. Harold, Jackson, Diane? Looks like the orchard's becoming Willow Creek's new town square. Harold gestured to the coffee pot. Join the crowd, Ellen. What brings you out? She pulled a tablet from her bag, its screen displaying a map of the county. The agricultural heritage zone's taking off. 2 organic co-ops from Boston signed contracts to source apples and pears from Thornfield and the restored farms. A heritage seed bank scouting us for a regional hub could mean 20 permanent jobs plus seasonal work. Jackson's interest sharpened. That's ahead of projections. The zone's bylaws are holding. Ellen's smile was fierce. Ironclad. No developers getting through, not Meridian, not anyone. Your foundation's legal team made sure of that. The group moved to the porch where the orchard stretched before them, its rows a vibrant contrast to the skeletal fields of months past. Workers unloaded crates of saplings from a Thornfield aerospace truck, its logo a subtle reminder of Jackson's reach. Sarah and Gwyn, a third-generation vineyard keeper who'd lost her land to Clearwater, approached, her hands dusted with soil. Harold, Jackson, she said, her voice steady but emotional. The community center's first workshop sold out, 50 locals learning drone maintenance. My son signed up for the next one. Harold clasped her shoulder, his grip firm. You're building something here, Sarah. Not just grapes, hope. Sarah's eyes glistened. After we lost everything, I thought I'd never work the land again. This orchard, your foundation, it's given us a second chance. Jackson nodded, his expression guarded but sincere. That's the point. Willow Creek thrives when its people do. Martinez opened her folder, pulling out a single sheet. One more thing. The FBI's Agent Reeves called this morning. Harrington's plea deal fell through. His lawyers couldn't deliver enough to satisfy the prosecutors. Trials set for fall, and they're adding charges based on new evidence from Meridian's offshore accounts. Harold's jaw tightened, a spark of satisfaction in his eyes. He thought he'd slip through, like always. Jackson's lips curved into a sharp smile. Not this time. Reeves has Meridian's entire network in her sights, payoffs, shell companies, even ties to foreign investors. Harrington's just the start. Ellen leaned forward, her voice low. Word is, the governor's office is watching closely. If Meridian's network unravels, it could change how water rights are handled nationwide. Harold looked out at the orchard, his voice quiet but firm. All because we held onto this land. The porch grew quiet, the weight of their victory settling over them. The orchard's renewal was more than agricultural. It was a defiance of Clearwater's greed, a reclamation of Willow Creek's soul. The community center's lights glowed in the distance, where evening classes taught coding to kids and financial literacy to farmers, bridging old and new. The diner downtown, once half empty, now stayed open late to serve workers. The farmer's market bustled with Thornfield apples and Nguyen's grapes. Lily's laughter rang out as she chased a drone across the field. Her joy a reminder of Margaret's dream to pass the land to the next generation. Harold lifted his mug, his eyes meeting Jackson's. To Thornfield, he said, his voice steady. Jackson raised his own, the faintest smile breaking through. To family, Martinez and Ellen joined the toast, their mugs clinking softly. To Willow Creek, Martinez added, her grin wide. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the saplings, Thornfield Orchard stood as a testament to resilience. A legacy reborn through two brothers who, after 35 years apart, had found their way home. On the porch, they watched the orchard shimmer, its renewal a symbol of Golden Valley's resilience. Dad would have hated and loved this, Harold said, gesturing to the blend of tradition and tech. Jackson agreed. He fought change but adapted when it mattered. Those mechanical harvesters in the 60s were revolutionary once. Martinez grinned. Stubbornness and adaptation, Thornfield traits. As stars emerged, Thornfield stood reborn, a testament to heritage, resilience, and two brothers who, after 35 years, fought as one. The orchard, nearly lost to corporate greed, now thrived, its apple trees whispering a new chapter for Golden Valley, where community and legacy triumphed over exploitation.